So in this particular session, what we'll be talking about is what is CI/CD and how do we implement it in GitHub. Okay, so let's just talk about a small scenario first of all. So suppose this is a local repo and then there is a remote repo, right? So after that, what happens is, let's say someone created an issue, right? So they might want, like, let's say some kind of bug happened, right? So let's say a bug, or they might even request feature request, right? So what happens is, so once someone creates, let's say, feature request, what you need to do is you need to look at the feature, whether it's been previously discussed or not, and then based on that, if it's supposed to be accepted or rejected, and if it's accepted, what happens, you need to add it to the workflow, right? So basically you might need to assign it to somebody else, right? So you might need to assign it to somebody else and then they might do it. So for that, what you need to do is this takes up a time, right? So you need to look at the pull requests and then the issue, and then after that what you need to do, you need to look at whether it's previously discussed or not, and then if it is, then like you need to add it. If it is, then you need to close it. If it's not, then what you need to do, you need to add it to to-do list, right? So in order to solve this problem, like, so developers spend a lot of time just doing this, right? So in order to solve this, CI/CD is very crucial. Okay, so imagine like you only have 2 contributors, right? So imagine you have a repo like Linux, right? So they have like freaking so many contributors, right? So if one or two contributors even does that, so like if there is only 1 or 2, then like it's manageable, I guess, right? So if you have hundreds of contributors, right, and then you have new contributors coming in with their own issues and all, so it just takes up a lot of time, right? So it's the administrative task burden is too much. So it will help us automate these things. Okay, so what happens is basically a trigger happens based on different events. So how the network is basically an event occurs. So a person who makes a issue is like a event happening, right? So based on that event, computer generated program, what it does is that it basically, so there is a server running in the background. So what it does is that it basically checks for that particular event continuously, and then if that event occurs, then what happens, it basically gets activated, and then after that it does all these things. Okay, basically checks the issue for like whether it's been discussed in the past or not, and then like and then add it to the to-do list. Okay, it does all that things. Okay, so similarly, that's about like just the issue, right? So even with pull request, right? So what happens is that, suppose let's say you have a software that's been deployed in GitHub, in AWS or somewhere else, right? So what you need to do is, so what happens is you basically build a code. After that, you put it into GitHub, and then after that, you basically deploy it into AWS, right? So you build, and then after that, it goes into repo, and then after that, let's say AWS, yeah. So when doing this, what happens is that when you build it, when it goes into the repo, then after that, what happens is you need to test it out, right? So people used to have their own testing server, okay, just for this purpose. So before it goes into AWS, and then what they used to do is that they used to have like many servers that used to do this tasks and all, and they used to have people associated with it just to do these things. Okay, so now what you can do with continuous integration, continuous deployment is that, delivery is that, basically you can skip that part. Okay, so you don't need the server, anything else, so you can basically automate the tasks. And now what happens is, so when you build it, it goes into the repo, and there is a test that happens with continuous integration, continuous delivery. So basically what happens is a test will occur, and then if it is successful, so you might need to test it in different environments. So the ones that is supported by GitHub Actions, so it's called GitHub Actions continuous integration, and it's basically, there are different names for different platforms as well, but GitHub calls it GitHub Actions. So you have macOS, Windows, and Linux. Okay, so you can basically put it in the repo, and then as soon as that event gets triggered, what happens is that it basically runs a test for that. Okay, so after the test happens, then after that it just basically deploys it automatically to AWS. So that's how this whole thing works, right? So imagine you have to do the all test by your own self. That takes huge time, right, for any developer. So you just don't have to worry about that. You just need to write code. That's it. So during this process, what happens is that, so that's when like this thing comes into play. This thing is called this image. What they have is what is this one over here. So, okay, so it's called. So first of all, what you need to do in terms of continuous integration, there is like, you need to build it, you need to first of all plan, then after that you code, then after that you build, and then you test. Okay, and then in terms of continuous delivery, what happens is that you need to release it and deploy it, operate it, and measure. Okay, so during this process, what happens during continuous integration is that once you plan, code, build, and then you put it, you've already built it now, right? So the testing part is already automated, the build part is also already automated, the release deployment will also be automated. So basically it will, if the test is successful, of course it will basically be operating fine, right? So the whole cycle or the whole pipeline itself is like basically very efficient. Okay, that's what it basically does. Efficiency is the key over here. So that's what basically happens. Okay, so you might be a developer, and then let's say you have a code written in the morning, it might get deployed, like you wrote a code over here, and then you have your users over here, right? So the gap between that time is reduced. Okay, so you can be like fixing a bug like in the morning, by the evening the users will basically get their things, like you have that bug sorted out. Okay, because see, the testing part is already automated, the build part will be also done. Build part the developer will basically do, and then the testing part and then the deployment part will be taken care by GitHub Actions. Okay, so things are done, what happens is that, so basically that just basically solves a lot of issues for any kind of developers, right? So let's have a look at it. How does it actually work out in real life? So I'm not going to do the deployment part, I mean in terms of AWS or anything else, that will just take a lot of time, right? But I will definitely show it to you in future. Like I'll also show it to you how to like create a Docker image and everything else as well, but right now I'm not going to do that. So first of all, what you need to do is, let's say you need to have a new repo. So first tip is that just give me a second here. So let's say so this is my GitHub, and then let's say if I create a new repo here, so if I create a new repo, you need to create a new repo. Let's say suppose if we don't have an existing repo, what we need to do is, let's go into creating a new repo. After that, what we need to do is write the name of the repo. Let's say CI/CD example. Actions example. Let's just say add a readme as well. So my repo is basically created, right? So once my repo is basically created, what we need to do is, let's just go into our terminal over here, and then let's just clone. So let's just go into cd desktop, Python. Right, within that, what we need to do is just copy this SSH. Once that is done, we need to do this. Just come to our terminal and then just do git clone. So if you don't have git install, please do install it. So git clone that, blah blah blah. So actions example is basically being cloned. So that's being cloned. So let's just go into that actions example, right? So if I do ls, so there should be only readme over here. ls, right? So if you see over here, there is only readme, right? So first of all, what we need to do is, I'll just show it to you as well. Yeah? So if I create a new issue over here, what happens is basically, let's say, new feature, right? Okay, so I'll just submit the issue, right? So what happens right now, the issue is basically open, right? So with GitHub Actions, what you can do is, you can basically, I've talked about it previously already, right? So you can basically automate. So to do that, you need to go to that particular repo that you want to set up a GitHub Actions for. And after that, what you need to do is go into Actions. And then let's not create a simple workflow. Yeah, let's just do this. So simple workflow. And then after that, let's just start committing. So what happens is, so when you click on that, it just basically gives out a template, okay? So this is the template. We'll discuss about that in a while. I'll just open it. Let's commit it first of all. New file, okay? So what that does is that in our repo, it basically creates a new directory called GitHub/workflows. And within that we have a blank YAML. So let's just clone that first of all, since our local repo does not have it. So git status, let's just have a look at it. Blah, blah, blah. So let's just pull it first of all. Yep, so it's already pulled, right? So let's just open VS Code right over here. Alright, once that's done, what we need to do is go into blank YAML. So if you see over here, what has happened is, basically there are a few things that we need to think about it over here, okay? So if you see over here, there is the name. That's the name of the workflow that you are basically using. Just a basic name, okay? So it could be anything, but basically in future you might need to reference it to something else. So basically it's wise just to keep it as well, like a reasonable one, okay? So what happens, when does it get triggered? So when a person or a contributor, what they do is, so in the branch name, if they push or pull, this basically action gets triggered, okay? So this is the action that gets triggered when two events occur, that is push and pull, okay? So next thing is, we can run this workflow manually from GitHub Actions tab. So we can do that manually, but why do it, right, when we have GitHub Actions? So next thing, if you have a look over here, so this is YAML formatting. So if you want to have a look at YAML formatting, I will definitely put up a link as well. I'll show it to you in a while as well. So in my browser, so jobs is like, so what kind of jobs do you want to do, right? So what kind of jobs do you want to do? You want to make GitHub Actions do. So first of all, you might want to build it. So you might have to like build, and then which operating system you want to use. There are different options. So there is Ubuntu, there is Windows. Okay, so whichever you want to use, that's your new server. A new VM instance gets created every time you basically run GitHub Actions. So what kind of steps does it involve? So first of all, what it does is actions/checkout. Okay, so steps is like now what. So you have a job and everything, and then it's building. Within that building part, what do you need? So what kind of steps, right? So first of all, you might want to check it out. So checkout is basically just creating another branch kind of thing, like it's just cloning it, right? So it's just cloning into the server here, and then basically within that what it does is it's basically runs a single command. So you might need to name the command and you need to run it. So you might have different, it's like basically whatever commands that you give in a shell, okay, in a terminal I mean. So whatever commands that you give in a terminal, you can give it over here. Okay, so let's just go down a bit. Control. Let's just clear everything first of all. So okay, once that is done, so what kind of steps does this thing has is that, so if you see over here, it basically checks out first of all. So we will have a look at how this checkout work as well. And then next thing it does is it basically runs using that runner. Basically this one is called runner. So using that runner shell, what it does that it executes this command. So it just echoes hello world. So basically that's just giving it an input if you are not familiar with Linux, right? So it will just basically print out hello world. And second set of steps is that so first step is done, second is done, so third is over here. So third is like if you want to run a multi-line script, so you might have like different commands, right? So pip install something, pip install some library, and then you might need to install pip install read requirements blah blah, right? So in order to do that you need to use a pipe symbol, okay, that is just YAML formatting, okay. So I will definitely show it to you with that as well. Give me a second. So if you want to learn YAML, so it's over here, the site name is over here, so you can have a look through it how the formatting basically works. It's basically a superset of JSON, which is basically to read over here. Let's just save this quickly and then based on that we have this. Right, so if you have a look over here, what you see is basically this strict superset of JSON, okay. So it's basically similar to JSON as well. So you might want to do that. Okay, once that is also done, so we know like all the steps and everything, right? So we did have a look at it. So I'm sorry if I went a bit fast in this, but if you have a look, it's basically simple things, right? So let's create one for ourselves. So since we already have it over here, what we want to do is I'll just replace this thing, okay, with my own script that I have. I've got it in my another repo, so I'm just going to copy it down. So this is called Intercept Bad Request, okay. So what this does is that it gets triggered. When does it get triggered? Is basically when you have a issue and when you have a pull request, okay. So when there is an issue opened up or when there is a pull request, okay. So based on that, what happens is that it basically gets triggered when these two things happen. So when someone creates a pull request or when someone creates a new issue. So what are the jobs that it does is that it basically runs with to latest. And after that, the steps that it takes is that it basically first of all it basically auto closes the issue or PR if the template is not followed. So you might say, where is the template? I'll show it to you. I have a template as well. So it uses is like a root / issue cloner / v1. So this is like the actual set of code that basically performs this action. Okay, so you might have this actions. So if you go to GitHub/actions, github.com/actions, you can see many actions over there. So you might read through it, and then based on that you will see like what it does and everything else. Okay, so width means like you can add many different commands within it. I mean, like with like you can basically use different parameters within it. Okay, parameters, that's it. So basically you need a repo token. Basically this is GitHub's token. So $/ is basically used to define a variable, right? So in this case it's like getting it from secrets.github token. Okay, and the pattern is like I've read all these things, so there is a pattern over here. And then issue user.login is like the one who's like actually creating that issue. It will basically give that guy like this issue has been closed. First of all, it will give a wave, and then like it will say blah blah blah, this username, and then two spaces, and then like this issue has been automatically closed because it did not match the pattern. Okay, so you get it right. Okay, you get it right. So once that is also done, since that is out of the way, now we can actually look at the pattern as well. Oh yeah. Give me a second. Download GitHub Actions. Yep. So I do have this folder. So what is this pull request template? So this is the template over here. So basically the user have to fill out all these things to basically create a pull request. And there is another pattern as well for issue template as well. There is all these things. So there is public user request question and T, right? So we have a local question, so they have to fill out two things. These are compulsory. So if they don't fill out this pattern properly, what happens is that basically when they make an issue, this actions get triggered, and if it does not match the pattern, it will basically close it. Okay, so let's just copy these two things. Copy these two things, and let's keep it inside my desktop Python. Where's that action example? So I'll just paste it over here. Python. What else is there? Actions, example, and then inside that there is a GitHub. Inside that there is a workflow. I'll just paste it over here. I did not specify recursive, because there is directory as well where there is a folder. So let's see. So let's just cd into desktop Python actions example, right? And then cd into .github ls. So if you have a look over here, everything is right over here, right? So request pull request template is there, issue template is also there, right? So now what we need to do is get status. So two things, right? Two files. So I can just do git add. What I just do at all here. So basically git commit. So if I commit it, update. So four of the files have been committed. So git push. Let's just push it. Has happened, basically it won't get triggered right now, but if we have a look at it now, we should see it over here. So you see, like the workflow is there, the template is also there, right? Okay, you know what I missed, I forgot to save this file, that's why. So now I have to push it again. Okay, so once that is also done, so let's just do the same thing again. Okay, so git push. Right, it's basically done as well. So if I see where, I think it should be updated right now. So now if I create an issue, what happens is that if I create a new issue, I will get this kind of questions. Okay, so what do you want to do? Bug feature, feature request. Earlier we did not used to see that, right? So let's say a feature request, right? And then let's say I have like some titles. And then what you need to do is, let's say you have to basically checklist, there is a checklist and there is a feature that you need to basically fill out. And if I just do that and then submit new issue, what happens is that the action get triggered now, right? So the GitHub actions, you can see over here in the actions tab. So basically this is being triggered, right? So now if you have a look inside it as well and then go to auto close, so you will see like the workflow that is happening, that is currently running, right? So setup job is complete, right? So did not follow the template, right? The job has been completed. So it will show you what kind of job it is basically going through. So if you see over here, the request, the feature, the issue was closed automatically. Okay, why? Because you get a notification as well. The user gets a notification. It's basically closed because the issue has been automatically closed. So it's just waved high, right? And because it does not follow the issue template. Okay, so this is how you can basically automate tasks. So suppose if someone requested a feature request, right? So the issue is like if they have like done all the checklist, they have basically filled out the questionnaire and everything else, then you can basically move it to projects and then like assign it, like have it over here, have other people assign it and everything else. Okay, so you can automate a lot of things. You can be very creative with it. So if you go to github.com/actions, you can see a lot of actions. You don't have to build it on your own. So there is a lot of template over here. You can use them. Okay. So even in this root.issue.closer action, I use this template over here. Okay. So if you go through them, you can like look at how to install it. So this is the template that they have provided. You can use this thing. Okay. So basically you can be very creative with it. So if you have a look over here, you can basically have like you can set up Python and then whatever code you've written, you can test it out so that if it's work, then only it will be deployed. So you can deploy it to Heroku as well. Everything else you can do a lot of things. So if you want to have a look at it more, like you can definitely read this blog as well from developer.service.now. Very good blog. And then another thing that I want to show you is about this thing. So YAML, you can read it. I'll put up a link for this for everything. Okay, and then definitely check this page out. So GitHub Actions workflow syntax. So what kind of syntax is basically permissible can be found over here. Okay, so you might be thinking what syntax to use, right? So all the syntax is over here, and basically this is how continuous CI/CD helps out in a lot of ways. So it basically helps out in terms of building, testing, releasing, and deployment, right? So this 3 phase is like basically a lot of help, okay, for any kind of developer or any kind of maintainers of repo. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty interesting, right? I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.